welcome back to my channel. Before we get started in today's video, definitely go down below, like, subscribe, and don't forget to leave a comment on this video for the YouTube algorithm. So today we are going to be discussing a crisis that is happening here in America, and that is the affordable housing crisis. So I've been looking at housing out here in the Pacific Northwest, and I've been noticing a very troubling trend, and that is that housing is pretty much not affordable in the entire area. You can't even find an affordable house out in the middle of nowhere where you really don't have internet or cell service. So it's just really crazy that housing has ballooned to be such an expensive thing, and rent has also increased. And this also is happening all over the US. Doesn't matter if you're in a rural area where job opportunities are very scarce or very low paying, and rent and also buying both have just skyrocketed. And you can best believe that wages have not skyrocketed. They have not doubled, they have not tripled. Actually, with inflation, they probably have been going down. So this is a huge thing. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what we need to be doing. If we need to be trying to limit foreign entities from buying housing, or if we need to try to limit companies and rental companies from buying multiple houses, or people from having vacation houses that sit empty, or having just multiple houses in general, I don't know. But something needs to happen, because at the rate that we're going at, housing is going to become such a huge issue. I just don't know what Americans are going to do, because I mean, my boyfriend makes pretty okay money, but with me not having a job or an income, I'm really still trying to limit how much we have to pay in a monthly mortgage or in rent. And it's even hard right now for me to find anything, just a tiny little 2-bedroom that would fit us and the dog, and have maybe a little space for the dog, and even maybe not that. That's the first thing that's gonna go off our list, because we just need enough living space for us to be comfortable and for me to move my stuff out of storage. So with all of that, I can't even find condos, which are like apartments. I can't even find that in the under 300,000 range, pretty much. And you also have to be careful, because if you find something in the lower range of 200, usually it has a very high HOA, and so that puts you at being maybe even more than if you bought a house at a higher rate. So I keep comparing, I keep looking on Redfin and everywhere else. I went to an open house today to look at a place that is in Everett, which is on a road, Casino Road, that's considered a really bad area of town. I know when we first moved here 3 years ago, everyone kept telling us, avoid Casino Road, do not rent on there, do not go there, it was supposed to be a really bad area. I went, it didn't feel that bad. I've been in the Memphis area, it's nothing is considered a bad area to me, but it still was ridiculous that the place that I looked at, it felt nice, but it was almost 300,000. It's only 1,000 square feet. The bedrooms were so tiny that we would not be able to fit our bed with our nightstands, and that's a huge thing, because I need to drink water at night because I'm always really thirsty, my mouth's always dry, and then Jason is supposed to be using his CPAP machine, and so that right there, I was like, it's not gonna work for us. And downstairs, they had kind of updated the finishes, but they were really ugly finishes. Definitely could tell that they were an outdated look or were cheaper, and that's why they were able to do that, I guess, or whatever. I just didn't like the finishes. And they also put tile in the kitchen on the backsplash, but there was no grout or anything like that. It was just all these gaps. It was just really a poor job. And also the light switch was really weird. The button was recessed back into it, and it was this weird space, from the cover part and the actual button. I don't know, it was a lot of weird stuff, so I just made me hesitant, made me wonder, are there a lot of other things that they did halfway, or maybe there are other issues with the place. It's really hard in today's market for anyone. I don't care if you're in the rural area, or if you're in a city area, or you're just trying to look if you are down south where opportunities are scarce and human rights are pretty limited. It's just, we've seen an increase in housing, and maybe one of the solutions would be for the government to try to increase density zoning. That might help. Or we could try to streamline permits and doing things like that, and regulations, and making them cheaper. I don't know. I would like to eventually build housing, because I've been in the kind of construction industry since moving out here to the Seattle area, and I really enjoy construction and design and just like thinking up things like that and working on projects. It's just a fun and exciting type of field, and so I would like to build housing. It's just, you need a lot of money to get started, to build like a housing subdivision or apartments or some kind of like dense townhouses or condos or something like that. And we need more of those being built, because they, I think I was reading online and it was saying that we've pretty much been experiencing a housing crisis for the last like 10 to 15 years. We've not been building enough housing to reach demand, and it just kind of came to a head during the pandemic because we had halted different industries, and different industries were experiencing high COVID cases and people that could not work because they had COVID, and it just kind of caused a disruption, and it just really made those issues balloon and become even worse. And then also with a lot of people being able to work from home now permanently, they have moved out of areas like New York or just really high dense areas where rent is very expensive because land is scarce and their pay is still super high. They can move to a more like low dense area and they can afford a lot more house and things like that. But it's also causing those different areas that those people, the migration, I think they were calling it the Zoom something. I was watching a Vice, I think it was a Vice documentary on it. It was very interesting. It was talking about a place in Colorado that has just experienced all these people moving in that have really good high paying jobs, and they're now working remotely, you know, indefinitely. And so they've moved into this really beautiful ski resort type area, and it's caused the housing to just balloon to like over $1 million or $2 million. And a lot of the locals who actually run and are working in the local ski places and restaurants and cafes and shops, they can't afford to live there anymore. There's no housing for them to rent, and they definitely can't afford a $1 or $2 million house. So it's becoming a really huge issue, and a lot of them are living in tents, their vehicles, and you know, Colorado in a ski town, once winter hits, they're not gonna be able to do those things because they're gonna get tons of snow and it's gonna be so cold. So they're gonna have to have a migration of people out of that town, and they're going to be short on workers and things like that. So it's a huge issue right now that there's a huge population, which I talked about in my last week's video, is, you know, 44% of jobs are low paying in America. And when you think of that, I mean, those people still have to have a place to live. You know, like as a society, you can't set it up in this structure, in this way. You can't put people, you know, you need these people because, first of all, we all love going to our cafes and getting coffee or food. We all like going and shopping at our favorite clothing stores or whatever. You know, there's so many jobs out there. I mean, even home health workers and people who work in hospitals who are taking care of the patients. There's a ton of jobs that are not paid well, even if they are requiring you to have extensive experience or certifications or maybe some type of degree. It's a lot of jobs that pay really low, and you can't just expect those people just go live in a tent now just because they can't afford to live in society, because you're not paying them enough to be able to afford just basic things. That's just my kind of thoughts on it. And I mean, I guess I've kind of talked about this a lot on my channel, is about the pay gap and inequality and just how low income is here in America, how high it is to live here, and trying to figure out like what's the solution, like what can we do. And also just letting people know, as a society, we shouldn't be judging people who are unhoused just because we feel like that they are failing society because they do not have housing. I mean, anyone could become unhoused. You could lose your job. I think the pandemic really showed that, but it's still, even with the pandemic happening, I still feel like society as a whole does not care. They're not showing empathy. They don't care, you know. I mean, they said supply demand, that wages would increase for people who are in demand. And I've seen a ton of jobs that are, you know, whining and moaning that they cannot find workers, and they still are not increasing the wages to a living or thriving wage. Like, if you cannot find workers, then you're going to have to keep increasing that wage until it is appeasing enough for someone to come and work for you. Why would someone choose to go work for you and still have to live in their car? That's asinine. If they go work, then they're not going to be able to be on government health insurance. I mean, if they can't even afford to have a roof over their head, do you think they can afford to be able to pay $500 a month for some kind of health insurance? It's absolutely ridiculous the way that corporations and the way that our society is set up, that it's all based on money and using people as commodity, and corporations leeching off of their workers' hard work. Like, if you are contributing, if you are working for a million or billion-dollar company, you need to be making enough money to live and thrive in society. I consider that a failure on the corporation if their employees have to go get on government subsidized anything, health insurance, housing, food stamps, you know, the list goes on. Child care. If they cannot afford those things working for a corporation that is just making bank off of their labor and that person, then they need to really reevaluate the system, because that is absolutely ridiculous for a corporation to be able to scalp the US and not pay its fair share, not make sure that the workers are being taken care of. I consider that corporate welfare, because the American tax dollars are going to subsidize their slave labor and their slave wages that they're paying their employees. I don't know, maybe that's unpopular opinion, but I'm a pretty opinionated person when it comes to human rights and people being able to live a happy, safe, and fulfilling life. I don't think that that's too much to ask for in this day and age. We are no longer in, like, you know, medieval times. We have the structure, we have the money to be able to do these things. It's just nobody wants to. Or, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's because the government is pretty much controlled by these corporations. I mean, they're paying, they have lobbyists, they have loopholes, they have all these infrastructure set in place for them to legally be able to cop out of doing what is right for humans, which is really, really terrible. Just let me know down below if you are also trying to find affordable housing in the US with your job that you are currently working, and just what your thoughts are. What do you think the solution is? And do you think it is the way it needs to be? Like, should we have the infrastructure and the system set up in this way so that so many people get left behind and get pushed into tents or their car just so corporations can make another dollar? Let me know down below what you think, and I will see y'all in the next video.